Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining me today because we have some very exciting General Hospital news to talk about, and it's definitely worth the wait. Since Jason Morgan disappeared from the center of Port Charles at the end of March, something inside Danny has been slipping further out of balance, and the change has not been small or quiet. It has shown itself in ways that are impossible for the people around him to ignore. What first looked like teenage anger has begun to feel like something deeper, heavier, and far more dangerous. A fight at school might have once been dismissed as a boy acting out, but when that unrest is followed by a car accident and then by a bold attempt to step into the criminal world that shaped his father's life, it becomes clear that Danny is not simply rebelling. He is grieving, reaching, and losing his footing all at once. He is a young man trying to make sense of abandonment, pain, pride, and confusion without the one person whose absence is now defining every choice he makes. What makes Danny's situation so heartbreaking is that his actions do not seem to come from simple recklessness. They feel like the behavior of someone desperate to hold on to a father who is no longer there. Jason's absence has left behind a silence too large for Danny to carry easily, and in that silence, Danny appears to be building an idea of what strength is supposed to look like. Instead of finding comfort, he is chasing hardness. Instead of asking for help, he is moving closer to danger. For a boy with Jason's blood in his veins, violence may look like power, and power may look like protection. That is what makes this turn so tragic. Danny may believe that following Jason's path is the closest thing he has left to loving him, honoring him, or understanding him. In Danny's mind, becoming more like Jason may feel like the only way to stop feeling left behind by him. His visit to Sonny says more than any outburst ever could, Danny did not go to Sonny just to be dramatic or rebellious. He went because Sonny represents the world Jason once survived in, the world that gave Jason identity, purpose, and a place to stand. To Danny, Sonny may seem like the last open door leading back to his father. That is why Sonny's refusal matters so much. Sonny did the right thing, but right choices do not always feel kind in the moment. Danny likely heard that refusal not as protection, but as rejection. He may have seen it as another reminder that everyone around him is deciding his future without understanding the storm already building inside him. Sonny knows Jason would never have wanted this life for his son, yet Danny may only hear that the men who shaped his father's world do not trust him, do not believe in him, and do not see the pain he is carrying. That pain becomes even more alarming because Danny seems determined to prove himself no matter the cost. The warnings around him are no longer working as barriers, they're becoming fuel. Every adult who tells him no may only be pushing him further toward the edge, because Danny is at an age where grief can easily disguise itself as defiance. He is not simply making bad decisions, he is trying to force the world to acknowledge that he is hurting. The problem is that he is expressing that hurt through increasingly dangerous behavior. He is not slowing down, he is accelerating. That creates a frightening possibility that Danny is no longer just imitating the legend of Jason Morgan. He may be trying to replace him in some twisted emotional way, stepping into a role that was never meant for someone so young and wounded. Rick Lansing's involvement adds another layer of tension because his role in this crisis is not emotional, but brutally practical. He becomes the one carrying terrible news into a family that has already suffered more than enough. When Rick informs Alexis about Danny's ambition, the shock is likely to hit her with unusual force because this is not just about a troubled boy making threats. To Alexis, this news touches old fears, old battles, and old heartbreaks that never fully disappeared. Danny is not just any child, he is Sam's son. That truth changes everything. Alexis is not hearing about some distant problem in Port Charles. She is hearing that her grandson may be drifting toward the same kind of darkness that haunted the lives of the people closest to her for years. For Alexis, the horror would not come only from the idea of organized crime. It would come from the cruel sense of history repeating itself. She spent so much of her life resisting the kind of world Jason represented, especially when that world threatened to pull Sam into danger. Even during periods when peace seemed possible, Alexis never truly stopped fearing what Jason's life could cost the people connected to him. Now, with Danny showing signs of walking toward that same life, Alexis would not simply feel worry. She would feel failure, helplessness, and dread. She may begin to wonder whether the shadow Jason cast over Port Charles was always going to reach Danny no matter how hard the family tried to protect him from it. There is also something especially painful in the timing of all this. Jason is gone, and in his absence, Danny seems to be turning toward a myth instead of a man. Without Jason there to explain his own regrets, his sacrifices, and the true cost of his choices, Danny is left with a dangerous fantasy. He may see strength without understanding loneliness. He may admire loyalty without understanding bloodshed. He may want purpose without understanding the permanent emotional damage that comes from living in constant violence. That is often how tragic cycles begin. The younger generation does not inherit the truth, it inherits the image. Danny is not chasing Jason's pain. He is chasing Jason's power, and that misunderstanding could destroy him before he even realizes what he has become. What makes this story so compelling is that no one around Danny seems fully equipped to reach him yet. Sonny can refuse him, but refusal alone cannot heal grief. Alexis can be horrified, but fear alone cannot pull him back. Rick can deliver warnings, but warnings alone rarely change a young heart already consumed by anger. Danny needs something more difficult and more human than control. He needs someone who can help him separate Jason the father from Jason the legend. He needs someone who can make him understand that becoming his father is not the same as honoring him. Until that happens, every reckless move Danny makes may feel to him like proof that he is strong, when in truth it is proof that he is deeply lost. In many ways, Danny now stands at the most dangerous kind of crossroads, the kind that looks almost invisible until it is too late. From the outside, people may still see a troubled boy acting out after his father left town, but underneath that surface is a much darker transformation. Danny is beginning to shape his identity around rage, wounded pride, and a romantic idea of sacrifice tied to violence. That path could lead him straight into the very life Jason would have given anything to keep him away from. And if the adults around him do not find a way to reach him soon, Port Charles may be forced to watch another generation be swallowed by the same legacy of pain, secrecy, and crime that has already taken so much from this family. There was once a period when Alexis wanted Danny kept as far away from Jason's influence as possible, and that old fear now returns in a far more painful form. The difference is that time and grief have changed her. Since Sam's death, Alexis no longer looks at Jason with the same anger she once carried, because loss has a way of stripping old arguments down to their barest truth. She knows Danny needs family, stability, and a reason to believe his life can move in a better direction. Yet even with all her love and all her hard-earned wisdom, she may not be able to reach him. That is what makes this situation so devastating. Alexis is no longer fighting Jason's place in Danny's life. She is fighting the darkness Danny is beginning to build inside himself, and that darkness seems to be growing faster than any adult around him can contain. Danny no longer feels like a grieving teenager simply acting out. He feels like a boy becoming dangerously attached to the rush of chaos, the kind of young man who mistakes danger for strength because danger is the only thing powerful enough to drown out his pain. His growing bond with Charlotte only adds to that threat. She is not someone who brings calm, caution, or balance, and together they could become exactly the kind of reckless pair that Port Charles has every reason to fear. When two wounded teenagers start feeding each other's impulses, the line between rebellion and real destruction begins to disappear. Danny may feel understood by Charlotte in a way he no longer feels understood by Alexis, by Sonny, or by anyone else trying to stop him. And that emotional loyalty could push him further toward behavior that is not just impulsive, but genuinely frightening. The most dangerous part is that Sonny's refusal may not protect Danny for long. Sonny may be the most powerful mob boss in Port Charles, but he is not the only one who would recognize value in a troubled boy carrying the Morgan name. To the wrong person, Danny would look less like a child in pain and more like a useful opening, someone who could be flattered, tested, and manipulated with terrifying ease. All it would take is one rival organization willing to offer him what Sonny denied him: a sense of importance, a sense of belonging, and the illusion that he is strong enough to enter a world built on secrecy and violence. Danny is already drawn to the thrill of dangerous situations, so if another criminal figure gives him a small assignment, something secretive and exciting, he may not experience fear first. He may experience relief because for a brief moment the adrenaline would silence everything else he is trying so hard not to feel. That is why Danny's story feels as though it is nearing a truly dangerous turning point. The greatest risk is not simply that he will make one reckless mistake, but that he will enjoy it enough to come back for more. Once the excitement begins to feel like purpose, once the danger begins to feel like identity, it becomes much harder to pull someone back. Alexis would understand that more than most, and that realization could terrify her in ways even she is not prepared for. She may see that Danny is not just falling into trouble by accident. He is moving toward it with open eyes, because some part of him believes this path will make him feel closer to Jason, stronger in his grief, and less powerless in a life that has already taken too much from him. If that belief hardens, then Port Charles may soon witness the rise of a boy who is no longer merely lost, but who is beginning to find dangerous comfort in becoming exactly what his family feared most.